Hi, welcome to Comic Talk. I'm Josh,
And I am Drew.
and this is the poll list for September 9th. We're going to start off this week talking about Batman.
Batman.
Number 44. Enough tomfoolery. This is Snyder and Azzarello and Jock and Luridge.
This issue pretty much is just Batman investigating a murder. In fact, that's all it is.
This is sort of an early Batman caper.
Yeah, so storyline-wise, the 0 year thing happened prior to the last big thing happened, which was the Joker thing. So I think in timeline it's sort of set between, the Riddler 0 year thing and then Endgame was the name of it.
Cool. So I like this quite a bit.
I liked it a lot too. What did you call it? I don't want to say Jeff Johnsian, but what do you call it when you just take pieces of lore or whatever and just intersect them into things where they don't necessarily belong just to do it?
I don't know what I call that.
Okay. Well, you talk about it a lot.
Yeah, it happens a lot.
But I didn't really get that feeling from this. It's essentially taking a storyline that's already happened and then connecting it to the one that we're currently in. But I thought it was really well done. I thought it was cool.
It was cool. It was nice to go back to Bruce Wayne Batman. Look at me, being happy about Bruce Wayne Batman. I think it's just that this is really well done. And I think having Jock in here illustrating this one really pulled it all together and made it pretty awesome.
It is pretty standout. Everything about it is standout. It feels completely different from 43.
It feels almost like a Detective Comics story.
I was going to say this is like what Detective Comics should be.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I don't know, I think it could be room for confusion there because it doesn't feel like it would fit within the current run of Detective Comics. Mm-hmm. But if this is what Detective Comics was like, I would be so happy with life.
Yeah, this does remind me of how they used to approach Detective Comics before the New 52. Back when Detective Comics was more a detective Batman story and Batman was more of an action romp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this whole thing is pretty much in a monologue.
Mm-hmm.
There's not even really a lot of dialogue to speak of. It's just him thinking and him putting the pieces together. And even when somebody's talking, most of the page is him being like, yeah, I know what he's going to say. I don't care about that.
Mm-hmm. This also, just like Snyder was hinting at, I don't know if you saw any of that on Twitter or the social media site, Snyder was talking about how this was going to show us a turning point for Batman, how he became a little bit more who he is. And I don't want to spoil what I mean by that, but it was pretty cool, and I felt like this took the Batman character and helped move him forward as a character. We actually got some character development out of Bruce Wayne Batman, which is normally my biggest complaint about Bruce Wayne Batman and why I'm so tired of Bruce Wayne Batman is because he's so well established who the character is and what he does and how his motivations, are set. Just feels so set in stone that usually I don't feel like I'm getting any development out of the character, which is a big thing for me in a narrative form here.
Right. The standard formula has usually been, well, everybody knows who he is, so let's just put him in new situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and instead of that, we see him grow as a person and become a better superhero in a way by the end.
And I think to a degree, most of the New 52 Batman has done that. Of course, this is a very successful representation of that. But I always feel like within each storyline, because they did kind of reset it and, they gave him like the 0 year and started basically from the beginning, like when he came back to Gotham, they are sort of building him again as a character. And, of course, it's not a completely redone character. He's Bruce Wayne, and you don't want to fix things that aren't broken, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But the Snyderisms of Batman's personality are really coming through.
Mm-hmm. And then on from there, let's talk about the abstract nature of some of the artwork in here. I really loved all of this work with the white space that we have in here, and using that white space to sort of push against the news stories and excerpts from newspapers.
I loved the little article excerpts and stuff in there. I thought they were fantastic.
Yeah, both from a writing standpoint, but also how they're represented. They're sort of strewn about in a way that makes a lot of sense for the story itself.
Can you imagine like a crazy person's wall in a movie, you know, where they have like articles everywhere and string connecting them and little, and that's what it is.
Right. But in like a narrative form.
Right.
A visual.
Showing you the progress of this crazy person's wall instead of just all at once. Seems like there was a bit of social commentary in this, which I thought was nice. The whole dealing with the minority kid and the somewhat probably crooked cop.
Yeah, they did go into this whole Black Lives Matter cop overreach. It goes into that pretty heavily. It's making some pretty direct commentary, actually, about that whole scene that's going on right now.
Yeah, it's very brave on his part. I thought it was excellent. I thought it was... it didn't feel forced within the story. It felt very natural. And he made a lot of good points.
And it doesn't really take sides either. It's not either... It's not the liberal grandstanding you might expect from a modern DC, and it's also not the conservative grandstanding that you would get from like an old Frank Miller Batman title either. It kind of walks the middle.
And that's really the point, I think. But before we get too much into that, I think we should move on, lest we spoil everything.
Sure. All right, well then let's move on to what we've been calling the sister title to Batman. I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but it's Catwoman. This is Catwoman number 44, and it's written by Valentine with art by Messina, Carlucci, and again Luridge doing the coloring. So we get the same colorist on both of these books, which right off the bat it does show, and it does kind of tie these two worlds together a little better for me.
Yeah, the sistership has been established. Selena wants out of the mafia life. She's got to find a successor. She's got to name them and all that stuff. So that's kind of what we're doing here.
I gotta say, I'm pretty happy with this issue.
I'm so glad you said that, dude, because this is probably my favorite one since After Convergence. I thought it was excellent. Pieces come together that now seem like so obvious. Like when I was reading them before in storyline, I would have never imagined that they would come together like this. But now that I see them all in place, it's like, oh, I see what you did there. That's clever. I like that.
Yeah, I feel like we're finally getting some movement on the machinations that are happening here. I felt like I was just trudging through a lot of things where not much was changing. It was just this big build of something that I didn't really care that much about. And now I feel like it's all coming together and getting a little more interesting. I like the idea of Selena trying to get out now. It feels more in character for me, for the Catwoman Selena Kyle character that I'm familiar with. It feels like this would be the natural conclusion to her trying to do what she's been doing to me.
Yeah, naturally. I mean, they're not going to keep her as the head of the mafia family for the next 5 years or anything like that. That would just be silly. I feel like the art really stepped it up in this one, too. We get some really cool paneling, especially, I think one of the... close to the last page. It's kind of showing the flashbacks.
Yeah, and this is a bit of a spoiler if you look too close. But now that they've been warned, go ahead and put it up there and let them see it.
Okay. I'll do a little
marquee. My direction.
Well, yeah, just pulling it across.
Yeah, so clever.
Yeah, so the stuff in the background, that's all things... like pieces of the puzzle being brought together, and then there's this sort of shattered glass background, and the guy in the center is learning, well, he's kind of putting the pieces together in his head about all the things that are happening, because there is a really big plot point in here that, again, I don't want to spoil, but I thought this was awesome.
Yeah, the hammer drop basically here is really cool. It's definitely going to shake this title up. I feel like now we'll get some movement and some exciting stuff happening in
Mm-hmm.
here.
And it's odd because since after Convergence, there have been a lot of people that died in here. But now we're getting to the point where people that matter are dying, you know, and that's cool. It definitely makes things feel like they're getting shaken.
I also really liked the inner dialogue of Selena in this. They're doing this really interesting thing where they intersperse all of her conversations with little bits of her inner thoughts on the conversation they're having. And it's just these little, 3 or 4 word or single sentence responses that she's saying in her head, but she can't say to the person she's talking to because she's spun this huge web of lies and deceit and, just this mafia-esque crime boss kind of thing. So what she says is never actually how she feels, but now we're starting to get how she feels in the conversations, which helps me a lot because I'm not as familiar with what's been going on.
Right.
And so this structure of the dialogue that we're using this time makes it a lot easier for me to follow personally because I understand now her motivations and where she's coming from better than I have seen in previous issues. Before, we would get the narrative boxes that would explain what's going on, and then we'd get a conversation, and then we'd get another narrative box of her inner monologue. But they were longer and they weren't interspersed in, so it made it harder to pick out who she was and who she wasn't. But this is doing an awesome job of it now.
And I think maybe that ambiguity was a big part of it because you're supposed to question how far into this she is. I mean, she was sort of forced into this position to begin with, and she starts to enjoy it at a certain point. And, it's that same old story of going in too deep or whatever. But it definitely shows some writing chops that she basically wrote 2 parts of dialogue and made them fit like within the conversation, within the story. It's cool.
Yeah, it was well done. All right, well, talking about getting in too deep into the web here.
Perfect transition.
I know, right? It's almost like I wrote it. I didn't write it, I swear. I'm just that good. We have Suicide Squad, number 12. This is Ryan Briones and Blonde. So, do you want to give us a rundown on Suicide Squad?
Manta's still getting in too deep, and everyone has a laundry day about their feelings, which I thought was pretty cool. And the big weapon is finally revealed.
So this is another DC book that I have not been liking, and this one is starting to turn me around on it.
Yes.
We have virtually no action.
Not really.
There's a small, 1-page thing with Harley Quinn that isn't really an action scene, but she does some flips and
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
cuts a guy with a sword. And mostly it's played for humor. Mostly we just get character development. Finally, after how many issues of this have you made me read with no character development? And so now they're kind of making up for it here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say there was character development, but it was pretty much just Manta.
Just Manta and Vic Sage back at the headquarters.
Yeah, they were the dynamic characters, and everybody else pretty much did what you expected them to do. But yeah, this one we get a lot of character development. We get some very funny, crazy scenes with Harley, which is perfect for her. That's exactly what they should be. We get a continuation of, I think it was like the first one that we did when Deadshot was smoking a cigarette, and then there's like this horrified child sitting next to him, and now we get like a kind of full circle with that, and he finishes the conversation with himself essentially, but the kid's there. Reverse Flash has a good setup for some good exposition or some big something in the next issue, which is apparently going to be an annual, so
Interesting.
I expect it to be pretty big and pretty filled with awesomeness.
Yeah, well, I'll start and I'll work my way backwards here. The Reverse Flash stuff, I really liked the conversation that he overhears and how he responds to that. Interesting that his character development is just him listening to other people talk about him. And really all of the character development work in that scene is done by the artist. So props to the artist on that one, because I felt like I really got it. I really felt like that character was developing and becoming a little more three-dimensional simply from the artistic representation of how he's internalizing this conversation about him that he can hear, and they can't hear him, or they don't even really know if he's on the line. So then working backwards from there, we have Black Manta, right? I like where he's going. I'm still not sure if he's actually completely buying in.
I'm not either. That's the thing, because I think he's smart, and he could have the theory in his head that they're always listening to them, and he could be right. And in that case, he's the only one that's, doing his job successfully. But he could be in too deep. When we get introduced to the character, he willingly joins the Suicide Squad because he needs something to do. He's just tired of trying to kill Aquaman, essentially. And so, that sort of lost looking for a purpose thing comes up big in this one. And it's came up big before, but this one really, really makes you start to question it.
And then we have Deadshot. He has some really good development as well. I got a real comedian vibe from him, from the Watchmen series.
Yeah.
Where he's, at this point, just everything's bullshit to him. So why not, just kind of walk the middle and do whatever you want. He's kind of a narcissistic...
nihilist.
Nietzschean, nihilist at this point. Just like, fuck it, I'm just...
He believes in nothing.
Yeah. So he's pretty cool. I'm liking the character now. And then Harley Quinn. We get that funny setup with her with all the kids and making them laugh and then freaking them out at the end.
Yeah, I thought it was funny too when she was just blatantly insulting them, but they spoke another language, so it was fine.
Right. The art. Yeah. Nothing to write home about, but not bad. Is it just me, or is it seemed like short? Seems like there's a lot of ads in this one.
We always complain about it being short.
Yeah, I guess so.
I think it's just a short book.
Yeah.
It's one of them $2.99.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah, for art, the only thing I put down was that Harley looks hot, which is probably the only criteria they were given from DC.
Right. Well, I guess that brings us to the last book that we read this week. That's Giant Size, Little Marvel versus Avengers.
Versus X-Men.
X-Men and the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Inhumans. And
Twins.
Other thing at the end that I won't spoil. So this is Scotty Young and Bolio.
This one, plot-wise, is pretty much the same as the other three. That being said, he has managed to keep 4 issues of the same thing feeling fresh every time. Which I don't even know how you approach doing that. But
there's some good absurd humor in here. The art is Scotty Young, so we all know what that looks like, and it's still great.
And speaking of art and absurd humor at the same time, the 4-page fight scene.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a 4-page spread. Who does a 4-page?
2-page, and then you flip the page, and there's like another. Yeah,
it just continues the same image, which I bet he had a lot of fun drawing that over a huge piece. All in all, this is still the same humor. We're just adding in more characters. He's going to try to get every goddamn character in the Marvel Universe, I think, by the end of this.
Yeah, I saw even Silk was in this one, which is like one of the new...
Right, Silk and Spider-Gwen. There's just tons of... There's like obscure Inhumans in here, and characters I don't even recognize, being a pretty big Marvel fanboy, and I don't even know who they are. So he's just having fun with the property at this point and throwing as many characters at us as he can.
Yeah. Which is it's a really not annoying way to go about it. Because if this was anything else but like a tongue-in-cheek Scotty Young book, I would probably hate it for that reason.
Yeah, there's even some weird meta commentary in here. On the very first page, he talks about your favorite Cyclops is probably there. Can you see this? This bit here. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
Quietly lips or floppy 90s hair, like... So he's really, he's really playing around with a lot of this. as we come closer to the conclusion, I think there's probably one more issue of this, and we're done, right? Yeah, there's even a joke that's just directly a joke about the Avengers 2 in here on the last page. So he's kind of going outside the box and playing around with a lot of different Marvel properties. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. It's almost like he knows that middle-aged men will read this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like he made a kid's book for middle-aged men.
Well, it reminds me in a lot of ways of a lot of all the best kids cartoons. Ren and Stimpy, Powerpuff Girls, Rugrats, any of these like 90s like Nicktoons kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of that kind of stuff where it's very cheesy and goofy, almost silly.
Mm-hmm.
But there's all of these bits of humor that reference pop culture, and especially Marvel pop culture, to keep older fans interested and having fun with it.
I could see that. It's the exception to the Nicktoons thing would have been Hey Arnold, which is like the most serious like adult situation cartoon I think has ever been on Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
Like there were some feels in that show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of getting off topic. Where's the Hey Arnold comic book?
Yeah, there
It's a
should
big
be
question.
one. It'd be good.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else we should talk about?
I don't think so.
Any questions we should ask them? I'm
What do
saying
you
we
think?
should start doing that.
Do you think there's any questions we should be asking you?
Comment below with your questions for you.
Yeah. We had been talking about doing like one of the old Suicide Squad trades, like one of the first series of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't really met a lot of people that have read them. So if you have read any of the first series Suicide Squad and you think that we should pick up one of those trades and do that, let us know, and let us know which one.
All right. As always, like and subscribe and follow our Facebooks and Twitters so you can see us get blocked by people and anger others and whatever.
And we got Squirrel Girl on Monday.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be cool.
Okay.
All right. See you later.